In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the new HTML5 inputs. So let's start off by creating our form and passing in the action, which we'll just leave blank, and the method, and we'll be using get, and our field set, and then our legend. Right. So now let's start off with looking at the email input type. Input type equals email. And we'll give this a name of email. And we'll add in our submit button, an input of type submit. We'll change the text on this button to submit the form and close that just like that. Let's save this and take a look in the browser. As you can see, we just have some form of text input. This is actually an email input. So I can go ahead and just type in my name and click submit the form, and we'll get this little pop-up saying please include the @ in the email address, as it was missing. So if I enter in the @ symbol and click submit the form, we're now prompted to enter in the part following the @ symbol. So I'll just type in example, submit the form, and the form's actually been submitted. Even though I didn't enter in any .com or .net after the actual email address. So that's one fault of the email input type. And it's not 100% foolproof. As we can see, we're able to submit an invalid email address. So let's take a look at the tel input. This is an input for telephone numbers. Type equals tel, and name, we're just going to give this a name of phone and close it just like that. Let's save this and take a look what it looks like in the browser. And again, it's just a simple input field, but it's designed to actually enter in numbers. So now let's take a look at the date input type. This is actually quite cool. Input type equals date, and we'll give this a name of date. Close it, we'll save it and check it out in the browser. As you can see, we have some form of date input. We can click on this little down arrow and we'll be popped up with a little calendar. It's actually really cool. We can select a date and it'll be entered into the date input. We can cancel this to clear it, or we could set this manually, setting the date, month, and year. So what if we want the user to be restricted in the actual date or time range that they could enter in? So say if we want them to enter in a date in the future and not a date before today, we can actually do that using the min attribute. The min attribute just looks like this. Min equals, then we need to remember the format that the actual date input is in. The year goes first, so we'll say 2013, hyphen the month, then hyphen the day. So we'll go 01. Let's save this and check it out in the browser and see what happens. So now, if I go and select a date before today, I actually can't go back any further. They're all grayed out. I cannot actually do that. All I can do is enter in or select today's date or any date in the future. So that's quite handy. It's important to note that this may render quite differently in different browsers, but this is just how it looks essentially in Google's Chrome. Let's go ahead and type in some data. Type in ashley@example.com and a phone number of 333-333-333, and we'll select today's date. Click submit the form, and as we can see, our form has been submitted. And the format of the date, or the value of the date, is the year hyphen month hyphen day. So now let's take a look at another kind of input. This is an input of type range, and this is very cool. So we'll have a line break just to separate it, then an input of type range. And our input of type range takes a min and a max attribute. We're also going to pass in a name. We're just going to call it scale. So this could be something of a scale of, say, 1 to 10. So let's take a look at how this renders in the browser. As you can see, we have some kind of slider or scale here, ranging from 0 all the way to 10. So I'm just going to enter in some details again, and select today's date, and I'll set this all the way up to 10. Submit the form, and then we should have scale equals 10. So that's a very cool input type of HTML5. And just to recap what I was saying before, when I enter in Ashley@example, a clearly invalid email address, yet the form still allows us to submit it. This is proof that we should never rely solely on client-side technologies alone to validate any form of user input. And client-side technologies include technologies like HTML and other client-side technologies, which are actually interpreted or rendered in the browser on the client side, as opposed to the server side, which will be running on the server. So HTML is a client-side technology, so we should never rely solely on it to validate any form of user input. So now let's take a look at the number input. So input of type number, and we'll give this a name of number. Save it and check it out in the browser and see what this input type of number looks like. As you can see, we have an input and we have these little controls with little down and up arrows, and I can change the number by going up, or I can change the number by going down. I can also just enter in a number. So what if we want the user to not be able to go lower than the number 0 and say not go higher than the number 5? Well, we use the min and max attributes. So we'll put in a minimum number of 0 is allowed and a maximum number of 5 is allowed. So let's take a look in the browser by saving it and preview it in the browser. So now if I try and go lower than 0, I actually can't. If I try and go higher than 5, I can't do that either. So let's just fill in some information and select today's date, and I'll put this down to 1, and I'll set this at 3. So go submit the form, and at the end of the query string, see number equals 3, the number that I'd selected from this number input. So I hope you've learned a little bit about the new HTML5 form inputs, including the email, tell, date, number and range input types, as well as the min and max attributes.